In 2017, Pope Francis initiated a discussion on the English translation of the Our Father. Religious scholars across the globe were appalled when the Pope proposed a corrective to the centuries-old practice. The Pope asked to change the text, "Lead us not into temptation," to "Let us not fall into temptation." Dr. Zacharias Thundy, a linguist, philosopher, and medievalist, wrote an extensive article supporting the Pope's idea. The article is available on our digital library. Dr. Thundy applied linguistic analysis and cross-cultural studies to compare various translations with the source text in Aramaic. The video contains a summary of his arguments. We hope this video will encourage the younger generation among the Syriac Christians in India, especially the Syro-Malabar Catholics who follow the East Syriac tradition, to learn the source text of the Lord's Prayer. Thank you. Today is Saturday, February 12th, 2022. We are at the home of Gina and Zacharias Thundy at South Bend in Indiana. I am so happy to introduce a very special person to our Aramaic Project audience. Retired Professor Zacharias Thundy is the man to whom I run when I have a doubt about the nuances of the Aramaic language, and he has always been kind and generous with his time and knowledge and expertise. So it's a great honor to be with you and talk to you at your home. The question that I wanted to ask first is, you grew up in the Syriac tradition of the Syro-Malabar Church in Kerala.
In the 1940s and the 50s.
So, can you say the Lord's Prayer the way you learned it, the way you articulated it, the words that you used?
Happy to do that. I learned to say the Lord's Prayer in Syriac when I was serving Mass at the Sacred Hearts Monastery in Chittapura, Changanasheri.
Okay.
I had to say that at least once a day or twice a day from the age of 8 or 7, because I started serving Mass at the age of 7.
Sorry to interrupt you. Now, you said the Our Father in the church serving Mass, but did you ever say the Our Father in Syriac at home during the evening prayer?
No, we did not. We only said those prayers in Malayalam. However, I want you to know that the Council of Diamper in 1599 forbade the teaching of Syriac prayers like Our Father and Hail Mary, which all the Nasranis of Kerala used to say in Syriac then.
Oh.
And not only that, they also learned the language from the school to learn to read and write. So that was all disrupted by the Portuguese missionaries.
Okay, go back to the enunciation, the pronunciation, the vocabulary of the Our Father.
Glad to do it. Awūn devasmaya neskandasmach tesemel kusa hevesaviana aikina devasmaya apubara haulan lahuma dusanakanin yaumana uswoglan haubain wakatakin aikina dapkan and sukan lahayawin ula taila in siona elapasan min bisha metol the didahi melkusa uhaila usashwahata alamalmin. Amen.
Now, Bisha is a masculine noun. Is that the reason why at one point you had corrected me on the translation of lead us from the deliver us from the evil one instead of deliver us from evil? So what is the Aramaic Syriac linguistic reason for the evil one as opposed to evil?
The word for the evil one is Bisha, whereas the word for evil thing is Bista in the neuter gender.
Okay.
So when we say Ula Taelain Lenciona Ela Pasan Min Bisha means save us from the evil one.
Not evil.
No.
Evil is Bista.
Right.
Bista is personal, personification.
Yes.
Okay. Now, is it Vulataelen or Vulataelain?
They're both correct. Both are correct. You can say Ulatalen or Ulataelain.
Okay. Now, since you said that, I was always curious. The way we, Syriac Malabar, East Syriac people say the Lord's Prayer, how far those words are connected to the original teaching of the way Jesus taught? All these words are there, or did something happen in the centuries to the text, the words?
The problem with translation is twofold. One is that the word was translated into Malayalam or in English as from evil. Now, that came about from a misunderstanding of the original word, both in Latin and Greek as well. Now, the original English translation was Eladavus unkosnunga ak alusavus evala. That was the way it was said in Old English. Evala means from the evil one. However, people in the 14th and the 15th centuries understood it merely in the neuter sense, from evil. That is one reason. Secondly, another difference between the English and Syriac, and that is Wasvokkelen Awūn Wahatahain. Forgive us our sins and debts. Whereas in English the words are, do not lead us into temptation, but forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. Now, the word trespasses was coined only in the 11th century, if I'm not mistaken. That was brought into English from French. The Norman French, by the way, invaded England. So they were trespassers, but they wanted the people of England, obviously, to forgive them for taking over their land. That is my personal explanation or interpretation of the word trespassers.
Wow. Now, the other question is about lead us into temptation. And Pope Francis intervened recently saying, God does not lead us into temptation. We should rephrase that. What is your take on that?
The Holy Father, Pope Francis, is right about it, because God does not lead us into temptation. Again, the word, as I mentioned, is Eladavus. Do not allow us to be led into temptation. That is the meaning of the expression there. Not do not lead us into temptation, but do not allow us to be led, because that was the way it was translated in Old English. Ne eladavus, not ne ladavus. If I say ne ladavus, that would mean do not lead us. But if I say ne eladavus, it means do not allow us to be led into temptation.
How do you connect that with the Syriac text?
The Syriac text means the same thing. Do not allow us to be led into temptation.
Oh, not lead us. So
No.
that's a wrong translation of the Syriac text.
Because Ail is what we call in Aramaic is upwell form, where it is It has a causative meaning that do not allow us to be led into temptation.
Oh, okay. So Pope Francis was correct.
Yes, yeah, all of us, linguists and even theologians agree with that. However, the problem is it is very difficult to translate.
Now, is there any other language group that has been following the correct translation of the original Aramaic?
Yes, actually, that's the way it is in Latin. That's the way it is even in Italian. In Latin we say, ne nos ducas in tentazione, ne nos ducas. Yeah, that is how it is. Ne no inducas in tentazione. If you say ducas means lead us, but inducas means do not allow us to be led into temptation.
Okay. So the Latin translation was true to the original Aramaic expression.
Yes, yes.
Interesting.
However, people who, as I said before, it can be understood in two ways. Like most words that we use can have more than one meaning.
Okay. In other words, can we assume that the text that we use in Syriac is almost the same as the one that Jesus used?
That one is difficult to answer because many of these prayers come down to us from the 2nd century or the 3rd century. Now, if you really look at the expressions, different churches used slightly different forms. As you can see, the Lord's Prayer is recorded in the Gospel of Luke differently than in the Gospel of Matthew. They translated it into Greek, in Greek and in Luke as well as in Matthew. Now, we people in the Syriac-speaking countries like in Palestine or Syria, we used traditional prayer in the Aramaic, probably taught by Jesus himself.
Okay.
So it's very likely, or more than likely, or that we continue to say these prayers exactly the way it was used by Jesus and his disciples from the 1st century.
Wow. What a great honor to continue the tradition in our church, in the Syriac Church, until 1962. My great hope and desire is that that way of saying the Lord's Prayer in the original way should come back to the next generation, because that's a way to reconnecting an umbilical cord to the time of Jesus, the Jesus event. What do you think about that?
You can do that at least by singing or by saying these prayers at Mass, but it does not mean that we can sing it, say it at home or in other situations. But we can say that prayer in the original Syriac during Mass.
That will be a great honor, especially because in the before communion we say this ordinary form of the Our Father. In the beginning we have the Our Father, the Trisagion, Holy, Holy, Thou art holy, Kandis, Kandis, Kandishat. But the Our Father short form is before communion. So we can reinstate that into our Kurbana. That will be a great.
Yes, and I believe that they do that
in the Syriac Mass, yes. Yes, but I am saying the vernacular version, English or Malayalam. But when that time comes, you say the Our Father in the original language.
We can do that. It's only a matter of
retraining
the people, or give them the prayer in writing, and then people will
Yes.
say that.
Yes, yes. I have to report to you something, good news. The Syria Malabar youngsters in America have become very much at home with Kandisha Alaha. So in the Trisagion, in many of the churches, they sing in Syriac. We started in 2013, experimented it in Washington, D.C., and it has become like now part of their experience. In fact, this coming Sunday, I am going to Connecticut to the Syria Malabar community, and I will be teaching Kandisha Alaha to the Sunday school children. And Sunday we will do it in the church. So you will be happy to hear that.
Yes, I have heard that many times when you have been teaching other children in other churches.
Yes.
Yes, that'll be wonderful.
Thank you so much.
You're most welcome.
I cannot